For almost a century, the international community has spoken about Palestinians, but rarely with them. It began in 1917 when Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, committing to establish a Jewish national home in Palestine. This was done without any consultation with the indigenous Palestinian population, who made up well over 90% of the land's inhabitants at that time. Fast forward to 1947, the United Nations passed Resolution 181, partitioning historic Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. Jews then made up just 1/3 of the population, and 95% were recent European immigrants, yet they were granted 55% of the land, alongside the most valuable Palestinian territories, including major port cities like Haifa and Jaffa, fertile coastal plains, and access to the Red Sea. Meanwhile, Palestinians who owned over 90% of the land and had been living in Palestine for millennia, peacefully alongside indigenous Jews, were expected to abandon their native land to make room for a Jewish state. And it goes without saying that they were not consulted when drafting the resolution. Following the forced expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians in 1948, otherwise known as the Nakba, armistice talks mediated by the UN took place, not between Jewish settlers and Palestinians, but between the newly formed Zionist entity and a number of Arab states. UN mediator Ralph Bunche noted bitterly about this in his diary in 1949. Another deal, and as usual, the Palestine Arabs lose. This pattern has endured through every phase of so-called diplomacy. By the 1970s, Palestinians had mobilized under the PLO, recognized globally as their representative. But even then, their inclusion came with conditions. Palestinians were told they could only be involved if they first recognized Israel. This gatekeeping diplomacy, crafted by then Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, set the precedent where Palestinians were expected to make concessions before even sitting at the table to negotiate about their own homeland, that is. In 1978, Israel and Egypt signed the Camp David Accords, an agreement fundamentally altering the regional balance against Palestinians, and yet again with no Palestinians at the table. The 1993 Oslo Accords formally brought the PLO to the table. The PLO and Israel engaged directly, but the agreement recognized the PLO, not Palestine. So when Hamas won democratic elections in 2006, the West refused to engage. Palestinians had chosen what Westerners perceived as the wrong representative. Democracy, it seemed, was only valid when the outcome aligned with foreign expectations. In July 2025, a UN-backed conference in New York offered the illusion of inclusion. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa gave a powerful speech. The Palestinian Authority submitted reform proposals and endorsed international oversight. But the conference's entire framework, from timelines to governance models, was drafted by foreign states. 8 working groups, led by other countries, shaped the agenda. However, Palestinian civil society, resistance factions, and diaspora voices were sidelined or ignored entirely. And the outcome, a call for a demilitarized Palestine and new negotiations within a rigid framework, was designed to suit international consensus, not Palestinian self-determination. This reflects what scholar Edward Said called the denial of permission to narrate. Palestinians may be present, but their story and their demands are filtered through foreign interests and frameworks. Meanwhile, the facts on the ground render these diplomatic exercises absurd. Over 700,000 illegal Israeli settlers live in the occupied West Bank and East Al-Quds. Gaza has been leveled with over 90% of homes damaged or destroyed. Nearly 2 million Gazans are now displaced, along with tens of thousands from the West Bank. The West Bank is fragmented into disconnected enclaves where Israel has direct control over 80% of it. There is no territorial contiguity, no sovereign infrastructure, and hence no realistic path to statehood. For over a century, Palestinians have been told to concede and be thankful for the generosity of their occupiers. Yet, every concession has led to further loss of land, of rights, and of narrative. How can you negotiate your future when you're not even allowed to define it?